most people think about Vikings, they have this idea of them as these terrible, violent barbarians. But that's only a tiny part of the picture. Actually, what they are is innovators. These are people who are able to invent stuff like ice skates to get around, pickling vegetables so you don't get scurvy on long voyages, versatile stuff like soap that you can use to do your laundry and clean yourself so that you stay smelling great on a voyage. And it's this versatility and this tech that really means that Vikings are quite literally able to corner the market.
In this episode, we're ranking 6 overlooked Viking innovations by what mattered most, their impact on survival, expansion, and the economy. Many innovations shaped more than one area, but each is ranked by where it mattered most.
As a part of this video, you're going to see AI reproductions of the Vikings. This is an incredibly interesting tool to use because we don't actually know that much about what the Vikings looked like at the time because we don't have that many sources. So this is a really great new way of imagining what that might have looked like.
Let's start our countdown. Number 6, bone skates and snow gear.
Vikings have some really incredible technology that they use in order to get around in icy and snowy conditions. This includes things like ice skates, skis, and even snowshoes for horses. This allows you to still ride your horse in the snow, and especially in deep drifted snow. Ice skates for Vikings are really different to modern ice skates. You have a leather boot that looks kind of like a shoe. So what you would do is you would take the big horse bone, you whittle it down, and then you polish it incredibly finely. Vikings are more likely to use horse bones than they are metal because metal's at an extreme premium in the medieval period, and mining is incredibly arduous and difficult. Viking skis are not that different to modern skis altogether. More particularly, skis are going to be doing a lot of generalized work. So it's a real sort of workhorse method of transportation for Vikings. This is going to allow them to get around through snow, and very particularly, it helps a lot with hunting in the snow. So you can pursue fast prey, and you can go over long distances a lot more easily if you're wearing skis as opposed to something like snowshoes.
Ice skates and skis gave the Vikings a way to survive in their harsh climate. These tools kept them alive at home, but didn't directly help them expand or build an economy abroad. Number 5, food preservation.
One of the things that's really interesting about food preservation techniques and the Vikings is that these are people who are paying incredibly close attention to their diets as a result of the scarcity all around them. For Vikings, it's absolutely paramount that you bring in enough food during the summer and then preserve it so that you can continue to eat it over the winter. So they will have smoke houses that they build where they smoke things like fish or meat, and that's just going to preserve any kind of meat over the winter. There are also new preservation techniques, including salting things. And salting is actually a really arduous process at the time because Vikings, the only way that they have to get a hold of salt is to boil seawater. One of the things that's really important to consider when we think about food preservation is it's not just about getting through the winter in a comfortable way, but it also allows you to do things like go on voyages of discovery, go a little bit off the beaten track, and go look for things out in the ocean that other people might be a little bit wary to go look for. If you know that you're going to have enough food to sustain you, that means that you can push yourself to go a little bit further than other people would. Other people in the Middle Ages are also preserving food, but they're not doing it to the degree that Vikings are doing it. Having ready access to protein whenever you need it is one of the things that really helps Vikings to dominate the high seas in ways other people can't even dream of.
Preserving food gave the Vikings the endurance to travel farther. Still, it didn't directly revolutionize their economy, which keeps it squarely in the middle of our list. Number 4, soap and hygiene.
Hygiene is an incredibly important part of Viking society, and it would be for you as well if you were on a tiny little boat with 12 other dudes for a long period of time, right? Whether or not you have lice is going to be incredibly important. Vikings ensure that they are kept nice and clean in any number of ways. One of the things we know Vikings are incredibly keen on is combs. Oftentimes, Viking women are going to be wearing really cool combs in their hair. And that means at any given time, they can give a quick pass through, they can make sure that they're getting rid of any lice or anything that is on them. And one of their other secret weapons is that they've got this soap. The way that you make soap in the Middle Ages is pretty much the same way you still make soap now. You take fat from olive oil if you've got it down in the Mediterranean, or animal fat if you're in Northern Europe. But the Vikings are living in a society where things like animal fat are at a premium. So they're using a much higher proportion of lye in their soap than everyone else does. And this means they are kind of using the equivalent of like laundry detergent. One of the other things that we tend to see that people are using on ship is like little toiletries kits, essentially. And in these, we find all sorts of stuff like Viking combs, Viking tweezers, Viking razors. They smell nice and they make sure that they've got a nice shave on before they get into port. They're gonna look like a very distinguished sort of trader. And it's gonna make you more believable when you're doing things like saying, this is how much silver I think this is worth. One of the really fun tools that Vikings have in their hygiene arsenal is something that we call an ear scoop. And that is like a tiny, tiny little spoon, and they use it in their ears to get out any excess wax. And it just shows that they're going that little bit extra in order to get nice and clean.
Soap and hygiene might seem small, but they were essential for survival in the brutal North, with only indirect effects on the economy or expansion.
Hey Dynamos, it's Dynamo CEO Nick Carlson, and I'm here to tell you about today's sponsor. It's BlandAI. I got to sit down with their CEO, Isaiah Granite. Here's what he had to say about Bland's enterprise business. Isaiah, tell us about what is Bland? I mean, I think a lot of people know about it. They know about your Super Bowl commercial, which was great, and people talked about it for days. But just tell us real quick what BlandAI is.
So Bland is the world's leading voice AI provider. So what that means is we actually make AI that talks to you. And the purpose of Bland is actually just to make everyone's day a little bit better and to give us back time. And we want to be the company that makes it really easy, where you don't have to wait on hold, you don't have to scream representative, and your day is not ruined.
You can give Bland a call right now to check out what they're building, or you can check out the link in the video's description to learn more. Thank you, Isaiah and BlandAI, for sponsoring this episode. Now, let's get back to the show.
Number 3, scales and silver.
One of the really incredible things that we see for Vikings is that they travel with their own scales. And I know that doesn't sound very sexy, but I'm telling you it actually is. Because one of the things that Vikings do is they trade not with coins, which is what most people are using as a form of currency at the time. They trade in bullion. When you come at them with a coin from wherever, they're just going to weigh it, and they're going to see how much silver is in the coin. They determine what prices are at a standardized rate, which makes them really great people to trade with. So you can get these goods out of Constantinople even when you're over in Western Europe, provided you've just got enough silver. You don't need to worry about your king standardizing currency. It takes out the middleman of government and reduces transaction to their purest commercial form.
Scales and silver didn't help the Vikings survive the elements or sail farther, but they transformed the economy, creating a shared standard of value that connected distant markets. Number 2, pivoting sails and navigation hacks.
One of the things that the Vikings do incredibly well is they figure out a way to sail against the wind. And this involves having a form of lock on their sails that will keep the sail in place while it swivels on the mast. So you can move that around in order to capture the wind to your best advantage. People hadn't really thought about this at the time. You know, it's a tech that people invent as a result of having to move incredibly quickly. If you go further back in time and you look at things like Roman galleys, for example, you've got a real fixed sail that's always just going to be relying on knowing when winds are coming through, and that means that you are more reliant on particular times of year to travel. Because the Vikings don't have that luxury, they know they need to be out and about, they are forced into thinking about how do you pivot a sail in order to take advantage. And that's one of the things that's incredibly interesting about their culture.
On top of their innovative sailing mechanisms, it was their navigation techniques that guaranteed they could travel with purpose. Some of them might look familiar to us today, while others showed their keen eye for observing the world around them.
One of the things that makes the Vikings incredibly good navigators at the time is actually one of the things that makes it hard for us to know about them, which is incredibly frustrating. They are not a really big written culture, but they do have a really great way of communicating just orally. And one of the things that allows people to do is develop incredibly good memories. They tell each other stories about what it is you need to look for. One of the things that they are particularly good at is navigating by looking for whales. They observe the patterns that the whales have in the way that they move because they know that the whales follow particularly nutrient-rich patches of things like krill. So they'll say, oh, if the krill are moving south, the whales will be moving south. We know a little bit about a lot of possible technologies that the Vikings had for ocean navigation. One of the ones we have great evidence for is just plain old weather vanes, and that helps them to understand how they need to set their sails and where it is that they're going to move. And just like now, they're often covered in gorgeous little animals, and it just shows you that since time immemorial, man has longed to put a cute little guy on a weather vane.
Pivoting sails carried the Vikings farther than ever, while clever navigation kept them alive in uncharted waters. They didn't directly do much for the economy, but for survival and expansion, they were game changers. And finally, number 1, clinker-built longships.
Viking ships are made out of wood. They overlap. And so instead of putting them side to side, which is how people are doing it in the Mediterranean, this means that you can use incredibly thin pieces of wood because the wood is reinforcing itself. And that means that you can use less and less wood in order to build your ship. This is incredibly important in Scandinavia because there are trees, yeah, that's really great in places like Norway or Sweden or Denmark. By the time you get to places like Iceland, there are a lot fewer trees around. If you are reinforcing the planks next to each other, then that means that you are getting the most out of every single tree you've got to get the best possible ship. Probably the most important thing to know about Viking ships and what they are able to do is that they, because they have an incredibly shallow hull, are able to go in very, very shallow water. And so this means they can float in almost nothing, just a couple of feet of water. That allows them to get up and down rivers, not just out in the sea. If you've got Viking ships that can go up and down rivers, whole parts of Europe can be navigated incredibly quickly. So you can have Vikings get all the way down into Germany. They can get all the way into interior Russia by going up and down rivers. And that is the fastest possible way to move goods, people, messages, all sorts of things. It's very, very difficult for us to imagine a world where travel is incredibly limited, but the Vikings were able to overcome that.
The longship wasn't built for war or trade alone, as we see often in pop culture like the TV show Vikings. It was built for mobility. A single vessel that could cross oceans, slip up rivers, and haul cargo across continents. That design solved everything at once. It kept crews alive, carried them farther, and made trade possible. Survival, expansion, economy, all in one. More than any other innovation, it defined the Viking Age.
The Vikings have all kinds of limitations that other people across Europe just don't experience, and that drives them on to innovate. For me, the thing that really leads to the Viking Age being this incredible transformative time is the hardships that people are experiencing in Scandinavia. The fact that they have these incredibly long winters, they have real limitations on what it is that they can do at home, means that they are more willing to get out in boats and to explore the rest of the world. If you aren't able to farm all the time at home, if you're worried about where your next meal is coming from, you're going to be more likely to want to trade. These are all the sorts of things that drive Vikings to invent new ways of navigating, new ways to even think about building boats that allow them to become the dominant traders across Europe for hundreds of years. It's the necessity that drives them into new tech, and that's what gives them their edge.